Good morning, great Americans. It's another great American video from Kentucky. I'm going to jump right into it. This is one of those videos. And by the way, if you like my videos, please click the like button and please subscribe. I really appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to jump right into it because this is one of those times when I'm having an angry knee-jerk reaction to something I saw online, and I immediately plug in my camera and start talking without any script or anything because I don't need any script for this topic. This this reaction to what I saw is the normal reaction is self-evident. It really doesn't need a lot of scripting and a lot of rehearsing. And here's what it is. So there's a guy who does podcasts. Well, I'm not sure if it's a podcast or a video cast, or if it's a podcast that happens to be on video as well. Whatever. It's called Redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris. Now, I remember Clayton Morris used to be on Fox News in the morning, and I liked him, and I figured but I've watched some of these shows, and he's kind of off the hook, man. He is convinced of several things. For example, there is a secret military base on the dark side of the moon. That that right there should give you a little clue into this guy's thinking. He's sort of out there a little bit. I mean, but anyway, we here at Great American Real News Links have zero tolerance policy for anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is the same thing, and anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. You'll hear people try to differentiate between the two, and that's a bunch of bullshit. It's a lie. And I can give you a slew of articles why it's a lie. But let's move on. I have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism, and the most recent, excuse me for a minute, I believe it's still the most recent video on Redacted's YouTube page. Nope. It is now moved down to let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Wow, they must put out a lot of videos. It's no longer the most recent. It's moved down to somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is. But anyway, it just came out. It just came out. Uh, let's see. I was just looking at it here. I guess I have to bring it up again. Sorry about that, folks. Give me just a moment here. Well, I bring up the actual video itself, and it was posted one day ago. I don't know why I don't see it on the list. It was just posted one day ago. So anyway, the video is about, the title of the video is CNN and New York Times caught red-handed accepting money to push pro-Israel propaganda. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, why is that anti-Semitic? I'm going to tell you why right now. First of all, everybody knows that there's two big things here, and I'm going to deal with the smaller thing first and then the bigger thing. First of all, everybody knows that CNN and the New York Times and all the rest of them are fake news. They're not news reporters. They don't report facts when it comes to Israel or Trump or anything else. They are fake news propagandists. They are shills for the Democrat Party. They post propaganda. That's all they do is post propaganda. So, well, I say, why not pay them? Listen, if you've got propaganda machines working against you, and you can get people at the reporter level to work for you instead of working against you with a little bit of bribery. I'm like, hey, I never thought, let me tell you this. That might have been something Trump should have considered, man. He should have paid off a couple of those CNN reporters and started giving them good reports. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I don't know. But the point is, look, the point is that who cares? So the title of this video is CNN and New York Times caught red-handed accepting money to push pro-Israel propaganda. First of all, their use of the word propaganda is a clue. That is a clue to their anti-Semitism and their hatred of Jews. Because here's what's really going on. CNN and the New York Times and all the rest of the fake news are already pushing anti-Jewish propaganda. Anti-Jewish propaganda in the context of everything that's going on in Gaza is just flooding. And very extremely few people are speaking the truth that this war was started by Hamas, that Hamas is out to eradicate and annihilate the Jews, and that Israel is only doing what it has always done, and that is trying to defend its very existence. There is no genocide. All that other bullshit is a lie. And very few people are telling that truth, and that is the truth. So if Israel is giving money to these fake news organizations to tell the truth, if that's the only way they can get the truth out there, then good for them. I mean, if they can turn some of these fake news propagandists with a little bit of money and get them to tell the truth, that's great. But you see how Redacted frames this. The inference here, if you read between the lines, is that CNN and the New York Times are honest, good reporters telling the truth about those terrible Jews, the horrible Jews, right? And that these terrible Jews are paying them money to push Jewish propaganda. This is so anti-Semitic and such a lie, it makes me sick to my... These two pieces of shit, and that's what I'm calling them, pieces of shit. What did I say his name was? Natalie and Clayton Morris. And the video starts off with Natalie Morris, and she's a moron, an idiot. I mean, she's a nobody. And the only reason she's on this video is because her husband was on Fox News, and she tries to look smart with these goofy four-eyed glasses, and she's an idiot. And she's also, now we see that the both of them are full-blown anti-Semitic Jew haters. They're on the side, they might as well get a job over at the UN or whatever. So, and I'm going to put a link to the video. Please don't watch the video and don't like it, but do what you want. I'm going to put, for the sake of fairness, I'm going to put the link just so you can see the title. But this title is worthy. This video and this title is worthy of MSNBC. Absolute fake news and hatred of the Jews and a perpetuation of the lie that somehow Israel is doing bad things and that Israel is out trying to push propaganda. The exact opposite of the truth. I say it again. The Jews, or Israel, ever since its creation in the late 1940s, has been surrounded by people who want to annihilate them and kill them. This has been going on for thousands of years, from the time of the Hebrew slaves under the pharaohs to the time of the Roman Empire occupying Judea, from the time of the diaspora, when after the time of Jesus for 2,000 years, Jews were spread all over the place, and everywhere they go, they were suppressed and oppressed, especially in Europe. And then into modern times with Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. And you would think by now we would have learned our lesson and say, man, these people have been taking it up the rear way too long. We have to stop this. But no, Israel finally gets a state, and what happens is that decade after decade, people try to destroy them. And then 2 years ago, it happened again. Hamas attacked and murdered Jews, took Jewish hostages. Now the Jews have responded, to defend themselves. And what happens? The Jews are the enemy. It's the same old hatred of Jews and anti-Semitism that dates back for millennia. It's an evil that keeps rearing its head. And these two pieces of shit, Natalie and Clayton Morris, are just the latest. Poor Israel is trying to get the truth out. And so they grease the palms of a couple of fake news liars to get the truth out. And these people accuse Israel of trying to spread Israeli propaganda. Unbelievable. It's the exact opposite of the truth. It is the New York Times and CNN and the rest, ABC, CBS, blah, 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 that continually push anti-Jewish propaganda. And Israel was simply greasing a few of their palms to see if they could get the correct side of the story out. So I said there's two things here. That's the lesser of two things. And here's the bigger of two things, which I accidentally already touched on it. I already touched on the bigger of two things. And that is, as I said, we have to always remember, and I have a video about this too. I'm going to put a link to it in the subscription. It's called our, I forgot what it's called. Oh, it's called Our Debt to Israel and the Jewish People. And here's what it is. Israel and the Jews are unlike any history or any people, any nation or any people in history. They stand out as unique and separate and in a sort of a class of their own. And that's how we have to treat them. And here is why. As I just said a minute ago, for thousands, literally thousands of years, again, from the times of the Hebrew slaves and Pharaoh, under Pharaoh, right? That Ramesses set the Hebrew free, and then, constantly being attacked by the Philistines and stuff. And then they finally established their king. And then around, before the time of Jesus, they finally set up the kingdom of David and stuff. And then the Romans come in and they occupy them and they're killing them. And then the Romans destroyed the temple and the kingdom of David. And then the Jews were persecuted for 2,000 years wherever they went. Oh, yes, the wonderful Christian Europe for 2,000 years. They're so Christian that they had what they were called pogroms. Now, I don't know where that word comes from, but a pogrom is these little sort of organized attacks on Jews, right? And that's what I don't know how to describe it other than that. And that happened for 2,000 years in Europe throughout, after the fall of the Roman Empire, through the medieval times and the Renaissance and all that kind of stuff. They were just constantly attacking Jews. Jews were like, I don't know what the problem, and that mentality, that European mentality of hating Jews for 2,000 years really peaked and culminated in the sick mind of Adolf Hitler, who took that mentality into the modern age of warfare and the ability to kill people. And Hitler's maniacal hatred of Jews was nothing new. He didn't invent that. That's how Europeans, he sort of tweaked it and peaked it a little bit, but that's been the European mentality for 2,000 years, and it still is today. So that's one thing to remember. Now, here's another thing to remember. Jewish law, which is, let's face it, the Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures are part of the Bible, and we call it Christians call it the Old Testament, and the Ten Commandments is the basis of Western Law, Judeo-Christian tradition is the basis of Western law. That's why the Ten Commandments are still hanging up in the above the judges in the Supreme Court. So not only have these people been persecuted for 3,000 years, but their culture literally is the foundation of our culture. And we owe them so much for that. We just owe them so much. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. In modern American history, the defining event of modern American history was World War II. Why? Because World War II changed the whole. That's when we really became a superpower. We sort of took the void because even though we won, even though Great Britain won, they were so decimated and smashed by the cost of the war that they started losing their empire. They could not sustain their empire. They could not sustain their global navy. And we, America, stepped into the void. So really, and plus the invention of the nuclear weapon and all that kind of stuff. But World War II is a defining event in American history. It's when we became a true superpower. It's when we sort of were seen as the savior of the world against the Japanese Empire and and all that kind of stuff. And we liberated these Nazi death camps where they were murdering the Jews. So here is yet another unique aspect. Okay, not only the persecution of the Jews for 3,000 years, not only their contribution to being the basis of our culture and our laws, but they were at the center of the defining moment of our history, World War II, and we liberated those camps. And those American soldiers who liberated those camps, they saw what they witnessed, and what they saw was something that took their breath away and brought it, almost bringing me to tears right now. Just can you imagine? Can you imagine being just a soldier, just some poor soldier from the farmland in Kansas, and you go to Europe and you open up the gates of these camps and you see bodies stacked up in gas chambers and bodies in ovens and stacks of bodies in graves, and then the people who are still alive that barely walk around, they're like skeletons. Can you can you can you imagine? That was another defining moment in American history. And that was really when we said, enough is enough. The Jews deserve their own state. And then it wasn't a few years later that the state of Israel was created. But even then, ever since then till today, the nations in the area have still been trying to annihilate the Jews. And every time the Jews try to defend themselves, they get blamed for being the aggressor. Now, this is the true face of evil. When you can look at all that, and then you can look at the most recent attack on the Jews, and you can still blame the Jews, then you're no better than Hitler. You are no better. In fact, you're worse. At least you have the information to understand. Hitler's like a product. He's just he grew up in an age without television or internet and whatever. That was part of his culture. I'm not excusing him. I'm just saying you have no excuse if you still think that way. And that's exactly what this video on Redacted, that's exactly how they think. Still blaming the Jews. I don't understand it. Well, actually, I do understand it. I mean, on a normal sort of level, if you remove the concept of evil and the concept of spirituality from the whole equation, and you just look at it sort of in a secular way, then I cannot wrap my head around anti-Semitism and this constant desire to blame the Jews when all they try to do is defend their very existence. That's all they've ever tried to do. For thousands of years, they have barely held on to their very existence. And now, in modern times, when they finally have a state and the means and the capability of fighting back, which, 2,000 years ago, when the Romans occupied them, I mean, they had a little army or whatever, but they didn't really have the capability of pushing back the mighty Roman legions. I mean, they just, they lost that. But today they have the capability for the first time in thousands of years, thousands, they have the ability to push back against the people who want to annihilate them. And what do people do? They blame the Jews. It's the Jews' fault. I cannot, I have zero tolerance for anybody who thinks like that. If you think like that, then I don't even want you to like my video, or I want you to stay away from me. I hate your guts. I despise you. And now we're going to reintroduce the element of spirituality and the concept of evil into this. And if you think like that, you are evil. You are evil. There's no way that Clayton Morris is ever going to see this video. But if you do, shame on you. Shame. Absolute shame. These poor people who have done nothing but try to defend their very existence, for you to blame them, for you to accuse them of wanting to push propaganda, when all they're trying to do is get the truth. And look at you. You're the one pushing propaganda. And in between the lines, it's just anti-Semitism. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Anti-Semitism is one of the worst evils. To me, this is sort of weird. This may sound weird, but in a roundabout sort of way, they say there's a silver lining in every cloud. I mean, anti-Semitism is the darkest cloud ever. The silver lining to it is that, to me, it is a proof. It is one proof of the existence of God, right? Because how else could all this come to be? Think about the history of Israel from the time that Abraham became the 12 tribes, and their history and their constant persecution, and yet their constant holding on to that identity that God gave them. And their contribution to the Ten Commandments being the foundation of Western law, and their religion being, giving way to, and I'm not going to, but I mean, the culmination in Jesus. Of course, as a Christian, I would say that the Jews should have accepted Jesus as their Messiah, because he was Jewish and he said he was the Messiah, right? But some did and some didn't. That's a whole other story. But this always being at the center of history, and this always being persecuted for just no reason, and yet they always manage to hang on. And has there ever been a people such as them who has managed to hang on so tightly to their tradition handed down from the time of Moses, still for 3,000 years, the Passover, Yom Kippur, and the tradition, and there they are at the center. It's just, and it's one of those things to me that is beyond being able to be coincidence. It's just too. It's too much. It's way too much to be coincidence to me. So, anyway, so now closing up a couple of related things. So we know that Trump is getting a lot of praise for brokering a peace deal. Now, I love Donald Trump, and therefore, because as they say, nobody ever agrees 100% with anybody because that would be weird, right? So I love Donald Trump and I support Donald Trump and I praise Donald Trump for what he has accomplished here with the ceasefire. I hope he gets the hostages back. I personally disagree. I think he should have allowed the Jews to eradicate Hamas. Come on, because Hamas is nothing but a pure 100% terrorist organization, and you're not supposed to cut deals with terrorist organizations. They're not a government. We're not making a deal with any government. I mean, sure, there was other governments involved in the negotiation, but Hamas and Hezbollah and the so-called Palestinian, whatever the hell, authority or whatever the hell that is, are not nations and they're not nation states. They're terrorist organizations. And really what we did is cut a deal with a terrorist organization. And I thought, as a big fan of Ronald Reagan, I thought we weren't supposed to do that. I thought we weren't supposed to cut deals with terrorists. We should have let we should have let Israel annihilate Hamas, totally douche out Gaza like a douche, and I mean that. Just wash it out, and then they could have done whatever they wanted to it. They could have handed it over to Egypt or the UN or something, but they should have. So I think this was a mistake, but Trump has done so many wonderful things. I give him his leeway. When you do 1,000 things I love, I'm not going to hold it against you if you do one thing that I don't love. And here's the other thing I don't love, which is actually related, is he should have, instead of just bombing the Iranian nuclear facility, he should have joined forces with Israel and just totally bombed Iran just into the Stone Age. No invasion, no war, no ground troops, no getting caught up in a war with troops on the ground. I'm not talking about that. But with air power alone, we do have the capability of uh, literally bombing a state into the Stone Age. How do you do that? Well, not only do you take out all of their military facilities, and I mean all of them, all the ports, sink all the ships. I mean, just take it all out. Not only do you do that, but you eliminate all their power stations, you destroy all their railways, you destroy all their bridges, you destroy all their roads and their dams, and you will leave them, when you're done, they will be nothing more than cavemen living in the Stone Age. That's what we should have done. Because Iran is just going to keep doing the same old shit. They've been doing it for 40 years, for Christ's sake. I mean, when are we going to learn? So that's two mistakes on Trump, and they're both related to each other. But so I don't know what his thinking is, and he's privy to information that I don't have. So, maybe there's a bigger picture here. Maybe he's doing this and somebody's giving him this over here because he's a dealer. He's a wheeler and a dealer. So maybe he's got some deals behind the scene, and that's great. If he got something good for us out of that, then I'm cool with that. So, but anyway, so good for that. Good for uh, uh, good for that. Good for naming Antifa a terrorist organization. That's a good deal. And that's about it. So So yeah, shame on these people and their anti-Semitism. It's just anyway. Anyway, please click the links that I put in. Well, please click my link. Well, click whatever you want. I don't give a shit. Just check out the links that I put in the. Check out the links that I put in the description of the video. Please check out our other videos on Rumble, and please subscribe to our Substack page. It's free. Okay, you can subscribe to the Substack page. So if I ever post another article uh, or a video, you'll get an email. Yeah, no big deal. And I will see you in the next great American video. Adios, muchachos.